The sun blazed over Red Hollow, East Texas, casting a harsh glare on the cracked dirt road that wound through the small town. John Jack Harrow maneuvered his wheelchair with steady precision, the hum of its wheels blending with the distant chirp of cicadas in the pine thickets. At 48, Jack was a man of contrasts. His broad shoulders and weathered hands spoke of a warrior's past, while the paralysis that stole his legs told a story most in Red Hollow never bothered to ask him. To them, he was just a disabled vet running Harrow Security Solutions, a modest outfit in a town decaying under the weight of its own secrets. The air smelled of dust and oil, a reminder of the dried-up wells that once fueled this place. Jack rolled past rusted pickup trucks and faded storefronts, his sharp hazel eyes scanning every detail. Old habits from his Delta Force days never faded. He paused outside Lena's diner, a squat brick building where the locals gathered. Inside, the clatter of plates and the sizzle of bacon greeted him as he positioned himself at his usual corner table. Back to the wall, exits in sight. Lena Martinez, a wiry woman in her late 30s with tired eyes and a warm smile, poured his coffee without asking. "Rough morning already, Jack," she teased, her Texas drawl softening the edge of her words. He nodded, offering a rare half-smile. "Just getting started." The diner's hum faltered as the door swung open, admitting two plainclothes detectives, Carl Grayson and Pete Walsh. Grayson, tall and lean with a predator's smirk, strode in like he owned the place, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Walsh, stockier and perpetually sour-faced, trailed behind, hands twitching near his poorly concealed holster. Jack's gaze flicked to them, registering the threat in an instant, but he sipped his coffee, expression unreadable. The room stilled as Grayson zeroed in on Diego Martinez, Lena's 16-year-old son, who just stepped out from the kitchen with a tray of dishes. "Diego Torres Martinez," Grayson barked, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Need a word outside." Diego froze, the tray trembling in his hands. "I didn't do anything," he stammered, brown eyes wide with fear. Grayson's hand clamped onto the boy's shoulder, hard enough to make him wince. "Shoplifting at Baxter's feed store, kid." "Don't play dumb." Lena rushed forward, her voice shaking but fierce. "He's been here all morning. Ask anybody." Grayson ignored her, shoving Diego toward the door. Jack set his mug down with a deliberate clink. "Feed store's 8 blocks away," he said, his calm tone slicing through the tension. "Camera above the register's been rolling for an hour. Check it." Grayson wheeled on him, eyes narrowing. "Stay out of this, cripple," he snarled, but doubt flickered in his glare. Jack met it unflinchingly, the air crackling with unspoken menace. Night draped Red Hollow in a heavy stillness, the only sound the rustle of pine needles in the East Texas breeze. Jack Harrow sat in his fortified apartment above Harrow Security Solutions, the glow of a single desk lamp illuminating the maps and monitors that lined the room. Reinforced steel doors and bulletproof windows spoke of a man who lived prepared, not paranoid but ready. His fingers traced the edge of a worn Sig Sauer beneath his desk, a ritual from his Delta Force days, grounding him as his mind replayed the diner standoff. Grayson's threat, "Stay out of this, cripple," echoed like a warning shot. Jack knew men like that didn't let defiance slide. A faint buzz broke his focus. His watch vibrated with a coded message from Tommy, Ghost Nguyen, his old recon specialist turned shadow hacker. Grayson's planning payback. Tonight, stay sharp. Jack's jaw tightened. He wheeled to the window, peering through a slit in the blackout curtains. The street below lay quiet, too quiet. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A nondescript van parked 2 blocks away, its windows fogged with the heat of bodies inside. His pulse steadied, instincts kicking in. He tapped a sequence into a hidden panel, activating cameras and uploading feeds to Ghost's encrypted server. Whatever came next, he'd have proof. The clock ticked past midnight, and the air grew thick with anticipation. They were coming. He could feel it in his bones. The silence shattered at 2 a.m., with a deafening crash as the apartment door splintered under a battering ram. Flashbangs detonated, flooding the room with blinding light and smoke. But Jack remained still, hands visible on his lap. SWAT officers in full tactical gear stormed in, shouting, "Police! On the ground now!" their rifles trained on him as if he were a cornered animal. "Can't," Jack said evenly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Paraplegic." A moment's hesitation flickered across the lead officer's face before two men seized him, dragging him from his wheelchair. His legs flopped uselessly as they slammed him onto the hardwood floor, zip-tying his wrist with brutal force. Detective Carl Grayson stepped through the haze, a triumphant sneer twisting his features. "Jack Harrow, you're under arrest for illegal arms trafficking," he announced loud enough for the neighbors, now peering from cracked blinds to hear. Pete Walsh emerged from the bedroom, holding a handgun aloft. "Found this in his closet, unregistered, serial number scrubbed," Walsh lied, planting the evidence with theatrical flair. Jack's eyes locked on Grayson's. "That's not mine," he said, calm but steel-edged. Grayson crouched close, breath hot with malice. "Prove it, hero." They hauled him outside, past gasps and phone cameras, into a waiting patrol car. As the doors slammed shut, Jack memorized every face, every badge. They thought they'd broken him. They were wrong. The cell door clanged shut, sealing Jack Harrow in the dank underbelly of Red Hollow County Jail. The air reeked of bleach and mildew, a cold concrete box with no windows, and a rusted cot bolted to the floor. They'd stripped him of his wheelchair, leaving him on the bare mattress, legs useless below the waist. 3 days had crawled by. No medical care, no contact, just the drip of water echoing in the dark. For most, this would have been torture. For Jack, it was a test he'd trained to endure. His Delta Force years had taught him to thrive in chaos, and he wasn't about to break now. Footsteps thudded down the corridor, heavy and deliberate. Warden Hank Brody loomed in the doorway, a hulking figure at 6'4", his shaved head gleaming under the flickering fluorescent light. A sneer twisted his scarred face, and a gold watch, too flashy for a warden's pay, dangled from his wrist. "Heard you were a tough guy, Harrow," Brody growled, his voice thick with mockery. "Guess that don't mean much without your wheels." Two guards snickered behind him, one twitchy with bloodshot eyes, the other gripping a baton like a lifeline. Jack met Brody's stare, unflinching. "I asked for my chair," he said, steady and clear. "That's the law." Brody laughed, a harsh bark that bounced off the walls. "Law don't apply to trash like you." Brody stepped closer, kicking the cot so hard it rattled against the wall. "You're in my house now, Harrow. Heroes don't last long here." He grabbed Jack by the collar, hauling him upright, meaty fists trembling with barely contained rage. Jack stayed limp, conserving energy, but his hazel eyes burned with a quiet fire. "You were Army, weren't you?" he said softly, nodding at the faded Ranger tattoo peeking from Brody's sleeve. "Dishonorable discharge. What was it? Stealing from the supply depot?" Brody's grip faltered, a flicker of shock crossing his face before it hardened into fury. He slammed Jack back down, the cot creaking under the force. "Shut your mouth," he snarled, but the doubt in his voice betrayed him. "Get him cleaned up," Brody barked at the guards, turning away. "General population today. Let's see how tough he is out there." The twitchy guard dragged Jack to a grimy shower, dumping him on the wet floor with a thin prison jumpsuit. "Better watch yourself, Wheels," he muttered, smirking. "Big Ray runs Gen Pop. He'll eat you alive." 20 minutes later, a trustee wheeled Jack into the common area. 200 pairs of eyes locked on him, sizing up the newcomer. Jack scanned the room, gang lines, power plays, hidden shivs, all familiar terrain. He wasn't prey. He was a predator in waiting, and soon someone would notice. The dim buzz of Red Hollow County Jail's general population faded as Jack Harrow settled into the rhythm of survival. His wheelchair creaked under him, a battered loaner from the trustee, but his mind was sharp, mapping every corner of the concrete jungle. 3 days in Gen Pop had taught him the pecking order. Big Ray's crew ruled the yard, while the guards turned a blind eye for a cut of the profits. Jack kept his head down, but his silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Late that night, a faint vibration pulsed from his watch, a signal from Tommy, Ghost Nguyen. He tapped it discreetly, and a tiny earpiece hummed to life. "Phantom, you reading me?" Ghost's voice crackled, low and urgent. "Uploaded the raid footage. Internet's blowing up. Grayson's sweating." Jack's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. "Good. Keep the pressure on." Ghost paused. "There's more. Got eyes on a black site outside town. Caldwell's dirty laundry. You're not alone in this. Before Jack could reply, the cell block door creaked open. Lena Martinez stepped in, her visitor's badge clipped to her worn denim jacket. Her dark eyes softened as they met his. "Diego's safe, thanks to you," she said, voice thick with gratitude. "Folks are talking, saying you're the only one who stood up to Grayson." Jack nodded, the weight of her words settling deep. "Tell him to stay quiet. This ain't over." Lena leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They're scared, Jack. Grayson's boy's been hassling kids all over town. Diego wasn't the first." Her hands trembled, but her resolve held firm. "You gave us hope back there." Jack's gaze softened, a rare crack in his armor. "Hope's a start. Keep Diego close. Things are going to get uglier." She nodded, slipping him a folded note before the guard barked her time was up. As she left, Jack unfolded it. "You're not alone. L." He tucked it away, a lifeline in the dark. Hours later, the jail's quiet was shattered by a new arrival. Colonel Sarah Bennett strode into Warden Brody's office, her crisp military uniform a stark contrast to the grime of Red Hollow. Jack caught snippets through the trustees' gossip. Bennett, his old Delta Force contact, had flashed credentials that made Sheriff Dixon blanch. "David Harrow's a federal asset," she'd said, her tone icy. "You're on thin ice holding him like this." Brody's bluster faltered, but his eyes glinted with defiance as she left. Jack knew what it meant. Caldwell's machine was rattled, and they doubled down to crush him. Back in his cell, Ghost's voice buzzed again. "Bennett's stirring the pot. Brody's pissed. Watch your six." Jack flexed his hands, testing their strength. The walls were closing in, but so was his counterattack. They'd come for him soon. He'd be ready. The air in Red Hollow County Jail grew heavier as midnight approached, the damp concrete walls amplifying every sound. Jack Harrow lay on his cot, eyes closed but mind racing, counting the footsteps of guards patrolling the corridor. 5 days in this hellhole had sharpened his senses. Brody's goons were restless, their whispers carrying threats of the West Wing, a place where inmates vanished. Colonel Bennett's visit had lit a fuse. Warden Hank Brody wasn't just angry, he was scared. Jack felt it in the way the guards avoided his gaze, their bravado masking unease. They knew he wasn't breaking. A key rattled in the lock, and the cell door groaned open. 3 shadows filled the frame. Brody's enforcers, hand-picked for cruelty over brains. The leader, a wiry man with a jagged scar across his cheek, grinned, twirling a baton. "Warden's orders," he sneered. "Time to get comfortable in the West Wing. Wheels." Jack stayed still, hands resting on his chest, voice low but firm. "Last chance to walk away." The guards laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Scarface lunged, aiming the baton at Jack's ribs, but Jack was faster. His arm shot up, twisting the weapon free with a flick of his wrist. The crack of breaking bone followed as the guard crumpled, clutching his shattered hand. The other 2 froze, eyes wide, realizing too late they'd underestimated their prey. The second guard charged, a hulking figure with fists like sledgehammers. But Jack pivoted on his cot, sweeping the stolen baton low to knock the man's legs out from under him. He hit the floor with a thud, gasping as Jack drove the baton's tip into a nerve cluster at his shoulder, paralyzing his arm. The third guard hesitated, then swung wildly, his fist grazing Jack's cheek. Blood trickled warm down Jack's face, but his response was surgical. A sharp jab to the man's throat dropped him choking to his knees. In seconds, all 3 lay sprawled, groans filling the cell. Jack wiped the blood with his sleeve, breathing steady despite the sting. "I warned you," he said, voice cold as steel. Footsteps pounded down the hall. Brody, drawn by the commotion, burst in, his face a mask of rage. "What the hell?" he roared, eyes darting from his broken men to Jack, still seated, baton in hand. "You're a dead man, Harrow," Jack met his glare, unflinching. "Heard that before. From better than you." Brody's hand twitched toward his sidearm, but he stopped, a flicker of fear betraying his bluster. "West Wing, now!" he snapped, gesturing to more guards lurking outside. As they dragged Jack away, he caught the scarred guard's whisper. "Caldwell wants him gone." Jack's mind clicked. Time was running out, but so was theirs. The west wing of Red Hollow County Jail was a tomb, windowless, soundproof, a concrete void where hope went to die. Jack Harrow sat shackled to his wheelchair, the cold metal biting into his wrists, but his mind churned with plans. Brody's threat hung in the air like smoke, and the whispered name Caldwell confirmed what Jack had suspected. This wasn't just revenge, it was orders from above. His earpiece crackled faintly, Tommy Ghost Nguyen's voice breaking through the static. Phantom, we've got your location. West Wing's off the grid, but I've hacked their security grid. Cameras are looping. 5 minutes till they notice. Jack's fingers flexed, testing the restraints. Get me an exit, he murmured. Outside, the East Texas night buzzed with cicadas as Ghost worked from a shadowed van, his laptop glowing with lines of code. Colonel Sarah Bennett's warning had rattled Sheriff Dixon, and Ghost had intercepted chatter. Brody was under pressure to handle Jack fast. A soft thud echoed down the hall, followed by the jangle of keys. A trustee slipped in, an older man with wary eyes, and tossed Jack a small tool. From a friend, he muttered, then vanished. Jack recognized Ghost's handiwork, a lockpick disguised as a pen. With practiced ease, he freed his wrists, the cuffs clattering softly. He wheeled to the door, ears straining. Footsteps approached. Grayson's voice snarled from the corridor. Time's up, Harrow. Detective Carl Grayson stormed into the West Wing, his silhouette looming in the dim light, pistol drawn and eyes wild with fury. You've caused enough trouble, he spat, advancing on Jack. The wheelchair creaked as Jack shifted, hands loose but ready. You're a dead man. Caldwell's done waiting. Jack's voice stayed calm, cutting through Grayson's rage. You're a cop, Grayson, not a hitman. Walk away while you can. Grayson hesitated, his grip on the gun trembling, a flicker of doubt cracking his bravado. Too late for that, he muttered, but the words lacked conviction. A distant explosion rocked the jail, a muffled boom from Ghost's diversion. Smoke grenades at the perimeter, drawing guards away. Grayson flinched, and Jack seized the moment. He lunged forward, ramming the wheelchair into Grayson's knees, sending him sprawling. The gun skittered across the floor as Jack pinned him with an iron grip, forearm pressing Grayson's windpipe. Tell me where Caldwell's black site is, Jack growled. Grayson choked out a refusal, but Jack's pressure tightened, a Delta Force hold that promised pain. Outside town, Pine Woods, Old Mill, Grayson gasped, eyes bulging. Jack released him, wheeling back as the detective slumped, coughing. Alarms blared now, chaos spreading. Jack rolled toward a service hatch Ghost had marked, prying it open with the lockpick. He slipped into the night, Grayson's words echoing. The mill held answers, and Jack would find them. The moon hung low over the pine woods outside Red Hollow, its pale light filtering through the dense East Texas canopy. Jack Harrow navigated his wheelchair along a rutted trail, the hum of its reinforced tires blending with the night's chorus of crickets. Grayson's choked confession had led him here, an abandoned lumber mill, now a black site for Senator Bobby Caldwell's dirty secrets. Ghost's voice buzzed in his earpiece, steady and clipped. Thermal shows 6 guards, 2 at the gate, 4 inside. Data vaults in the East Wing. Financials, comms, all of it. Jack adjusted his tactical gear, a lightweight vest rigged with non-lethal tools from his Delta Force days. Copy. Going in quiet. He approached the mill's rusted fence, cutting through with a compact torch from a hidden compartment. The guards at the gate paced lazily, unaware of the shadow slipping past. Inside, the air stank of mildew and oil, the mill's skeletal frame looming like a forgotten giant. Jack wheeled silently toward the East Wing, avoiding creaky boards, his senses razor-sharp. A guard rounded a corner, and Jack struck. Dart from a wrist-mounted launcher, silent and precise, dropping the man instantly. He dragged the body into shadows, then hacked the vault's electronic lock with a device Ghost had slipped him days ago. The door hissed open, revealing servers humming with Caldwell's empire of corruption. Jack plugged in a drive, downloading everything. A sharp crack split the silence. Boots on gravel, too close. Jack yanked the drive free as the vault door slammed open, revealing Victor Kane, a lean figure in black, his cold gray eyes glinting like a blade. Caldwell's hired gun, a former Green Beret turned mercenary, leveled a silenced pistol at Jack's chest. "End of the line, Harrow," Kane said, voice smooth as ice. Jack wheeled back, hands steady. "You're late." Kane smirked, stepping closer. "Caldwell pays me to clean up messes. You're just the latest." The mill trembled as Ghost's diversion kicked in, flashbangs erupting outside, drawing shouts from the guards. Kane's aim wavered, and Jack lunged, ramming his chair into Kane's shins. The pistol fired, grazing Jack's shoulder, but he twisted Kane's wrist, forcing the gun to clatter free. They grappled, Kane's speed clashing with Jack's raw power. Jack slammed a fist into Kane's ribs, then locked his arm, flipping him onto the concrete. "Where's Caldwell meeting Torres?" Jack growled, pressing harder. Kane coughed, defiance fading. "Old refinery. Tomorrow night." Jack zip-tied him, blood dripping from his shoulder as he wheeled away. Alarms screeched now, guards converging. Jack slipped through a loading bay, the drive secure in his vest. Kane's words burned in his mind. Caldwell's next move was close, and Jack needed allies to hit it. The night swallowed him, but the war was just heating up. Dawn broke over the East Texas pines, painting the sky in streaks of gold as Jack Harrow rolled into a safe house, a ramshackle cabin 10 miles from Red Hollow. Blood crusted his shoulder where Kane's bullet had grazed him, but the drive from the mill pulsed with Caldwell's secrets: bank records, coded messages, proof of a cartel pipeline. Ghost's voice crackled through a secure line. "Data's gold, Phantom. Caldwell's meeting Javier Torres tomorrow night. Old refinery off Route 9. Jack nodded, cleaning the wound with steady hands. "Need more than data. Need boots on the ground." The cabin door creaked open, and Sheriff Earl Dixon stepped in, his weathered face etched with exhaustion. Once a straight shooter, Dixon had bent under Caldwell's weight: protection rackets, drug routes, a daughter lost to overdose fueling his fall. Jack wheeled forward, eyes hard. "You've got one shot to make this right, Earl. I've got evidence to bury Caldwell, but I need you to get me close." Dixon's jaw tightened, hands balling into fists. "You think I want this? I'm in too deep. Grayson's watching my every move." Jack slid the drive across the table. "This proves he's meeting Torres. Help me, and you're a witness, not a corpse." Dixon stared at the drive, then met Jack's gaze, a flicker of resolve breaking through. "All right, but we do it my way." Jack smirked faintly. "Deal." The safe house trembled as dusk settled, a distant rumble signaling trouble. Jack and Dixon hunched over a map of the old refinery, plotting their approach. Entry points, blind spots, a plan to catch Caldwell red-handed with Torres. Ghost chimed in, his voice tense. "Heads up, Phantom. Thermal's picking up movement. 6 hostiles armed, closing on your position." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Caldwell's tying loose ends." Dixon grabbed his shotgun, sweat beading on his brow. "Grayson must have sniffed me out. We're sitting ducks." Headlights pierced the cabin windows as black SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Mercenaries spilled out, automatic rifles glinting in the fading light. Jack wheeled to a hidden panel, pulling a compressed air launcher. "Cover the back," he barked at Dixon. The first shots shattered glass, bullets chewing into the walls. Jack fired back, non-lethal darts dropping 2 men in a heartbeat. Dixon blasted buckshot through the rear door, scattering another pair. The air thickened with smoke and cordite, chaos reigning as the cabin buckled. Jack rammed a merc through a window, pinning him with the chair's weight. "Who sent you?" he growled. The man spat blood, gasping. "Caldwell's orders. Clean slate." Dixon reloaded, breathing hard. "We can't hold him long." Jack nodded, adrenaline surging. "Then we move now. Refinery's our shot." They fought their way to Dixon's truck, peeling out as flames licked the cabin. Allies or not, survival demanded they strike first. Night cloaked the old refinery off Route 9, its rusted towers looming like sentinels over the East Texas pines. Jack Harrow crouched in his wheelchair behind a crumbling wall, the hum of Dixon's truck fading as it circled to the rear. Sheriff Earl Dixon, shotgun in hand, flanked him, their uneasy truce forged in the fire of the safe house attack. Ghost's voice hissed through Jack's earpiece. "Caldwell's SUV just rolled in. Torres's crew 5 minutes out. Mics and cameras hot. Jack nodded, adjusting his tactical vest. The drive from the mill secure in a hidden pocket. We get the meat on tape, Earl. That's the kill shot. Headlights pierced the dark as Senator Bobby Caldwell stepped out, flanked by bodyguards in crisp suits. His silver hair glinted under the refinery's floodlights, his voice sharp as he barked orders. Torres better show. FBI's sniffing too close. Jack wheeled closer, staying low, Ghost's directional mics catching every word. A second convoy roared up, disgorging Javier Torres, a wiry cartel lieutenant with a predator's grin. Your mess cost me 3 shipments, Torres snapped, pacing. Caldwell spread his hands. Temporary hiccup. Harrow's handled. Kane's on it. Jack's grip tightened, the graze on his shoulder throbbing. Dixon whispered, They're scared stiff. Jack smirked faintly. Good. Ghost cut in, urgent. Sniper on the roof. Kane's here. Jack's eyes flicked up, spotting the glint of a scope. Time was ticking. A rifle crack split the night, the bullet slamming into the wall inches from Jack's head. He dropped flat, concrete dust stinging his eyes as Victor Kane's shot echoed through the refinery. Move! Jack hissed, wheeling back as Dixon fired a wild blast toward the roof. Below, Caldwell and Torres spun, their guards drawing weapons. Ghost's voice crackled. Kane's repositioning. FBI's inbound. 3 minutes. Chaos erupted. Torres's men shouted in Spanish, rushing him to an SUV, while Caldwell bellowed, Find that bastard! Jack rolled toward a stack of oil drums, launching a smoke grenade from his chair. Gray haze swallowed the scene, buying seconds. Kane leaped from the roof, landing cat-like, his silenced pistol gleaming. Jack met him head-on, ramming his chair into Kane's legs. The mercenary stumbled, firing blind, but Jack twisted his arm, snapping the wrist with a sickening crunch. Kane snarled, drawing a knife with his good hand, slashing at Jack's chest. Jack blocked with his forearm, blood welling, then drove a fist into Kane's temple, dropping him cold. Dixon hauled Jack back as FBI tactical vans screeched in, agents swarming with shouts of hands up. Caldwell froze. Torres was cuffed mid-escape, but Kane was gone when Jack looked back, slipped into the shadows. Ghost buzzed. We've got it all on tape. Jack nodded, grim. Caldwell was down, but his son wouldn't sit quiet. The news hit Red Hollow like a thunderclap. Senator Bobby Caldwell, handcuffed and defiant, was denied bail, his empire of corruption crumbling under the weight of Jack Harrow's evidence. From a safe house nestled in the East Texas hills, Jack watched the broadcast, his wheelchair parked beside a bank of monitors Ghost had rigged. The refinery tape, Caldwell's voice plotting with Torres, played on loop across every station, FBI raids sweeping his network. Jack's shoulder ached, bandaged from Kane's blade, but his focus was ironclad. Ghost's distorted voice cut through. Grayson's dead, staged suicide. Caldwell's cleaning house. Jack wheeled to a window, the pine forest stretching endlessly below. He's not the one pulling strings now, he said, voice low. Sheriff Earl Dixon slumped in a chair, nursing a coffee, his face haggard. Ethan Caldwell, Bobby's son. Word is he's taking over, and he's pissed. Jack nodded. Ethan, a former CIA contractor, had his father's ruthlessness, but none of his restraint. The safe house door creaked, and Lena Martinez stepped in, Diego trailing behind. They hit my place last night, she said, eyes wide. Looking for you. Jack's jaw tightened. Ethan was hunting anyone tied to him. Ghost chimed in. Intercepted chatter. Ethan's got a hit team. Ex-Special Forces. Target's you, Phantom. Jack met Dixon's gaze. They're coming here, he said, calm but certain. We don't wait. We hit back first. Dusk painted the hills in shadow as Jack and Dixon prepped for war in the safe house. Ghost screens flickered with satellite feeds. 3 black vans snaking through the back roads toward them, loaded with Ethan Caldwell's mercenaries. Jack adjusted his tactical chair, its hidden compartments bristling with non-lethal gear. Darts, smoke grenades, a launcher he'd rigged himself. 15 hostiles, Ghost reported. They're aiming to wipe us out. Dixon loaded his shotgun, hands steady despite the tremor in his voice. This is my fault. Should have stopped Bobby years ago. Jack shot him a look. Save the guilt. We end this tonight. Lena approached, gripping a tire iron. Diego and I can help. Jack shook his head. Get to the basement. Lock it tight. Her eyes flashed defiance, but she nodded, ushering Diego downstairs. Outside, engines growled closer, tires crunching gravel. Jack wheeled to the porch, Dixon at his side as the van screeched to a halt. Armed figures spilled out, moving with military precision. Ethan's elite, here for blood. Jack launched a smokescreen, gray clouds swallowing the yard. Gunfire erupted, bullets tearing into the cabin's walls. Dixon returned fire, dropping a merc, while Jack rolled forward, darts felling two more. A voice cut through the haze, Ethan's, cold and commanding. Burn it down! Flames licked the roof as Jack locked eyes with Dixon. Old base, 5 miles north, Jack said. That's our stand. The old military base sprawled 5 miles north of Red Hollow, its cracked runways and crumbling barracks swallowed by East Texas night. Jack Harrow wheeled into position behind a rusted hangar, the glow of the burning safe house fading on the horizon. Sheriff Earl Dixon crouched beside him, shotgun ready, his breath ragged but eyes fierce. Ghost voice buzzed through Jack's earpiece. Ethan's team's inbound, 12 mercs, 2 snipers, heavy ordnance. They're pissed. Jack adjusted his tactical chair, its reinforced frame loaded with traps, smoke dispensers, remote mines, all preset across the base. Let 'em come, he said, voice steady as steel. Headlights pierced the dark as Ethan Caldwell's convoy roared in, tires screeching to a halt. Mercenaries deployed with lethal precision, snipers scaling watchtowers while assault teams fanned out. Ethan stepped from a van, his lean frame clad in black fatigues, a predator's grin twisting his face. Harrow! He shouted, voice echoing. No more running. Jack triggered the first trap. Smoke billowed, blinding the snipers. Dixon fired, scattering a squad, as Jack rolled forward, launching darts that dropped 2 men silently. The base erupted in chaos. Gunfire, shouts, the crack of mines tripping underfoot. Jack maneuvered through shadows, outpacing Ethan's hunters. West bunker, he hissed to Dixon. We funnel 'em there. Ethan's laughter rang out, chillingly close. You're mine, cripple. Jack's jaw tightened. This ended tonight, one way or another. The West bunker loomed, a concrete relic pocked with bullet scars, as Jack and Dixon drew Ethan's mercenaries in. Jack triggered a minefield, blasts ripping through the night, sending bodies sprawling. Non-lethal, but crippling. Dixon held the bunker door, shotgun blazing, his gruff voice shouting, Get inside, Jack! Ethan emerged through the smoke, pistol raised, his eyes wild with fury. You ruined everything, he snarled, firing. A slug grazed Dixon's arm, but he stood firm, returning fire to cover Jack's roll into the bunker. The mercs closed in, relentless despite their losses. Inside, Jack set the final trap, a rigged gas canister, primed to stun. Ethan charged through the door, too fast, tackling Jack from his chair. They hit the floor, grappling fiercely, Ethan's strength against Jack's precision. Jack twisted, locking Ethan's arm, but the younger man broke free, slamming a fist into Jack's ribs. Pain flared, but Jack's hand found the detonator. For Red Hollow, he growled, triggering the blast. Gas flooded the bunker, choking Ethan mid-swing. He staggered, coughing, as Jack pinned him, zip-tying his wrists. Outside, Dixon slumped, blood pooling. A merc's bullet had found his chest. Go, finish it, Dixon rasped, shoving Jack his badge. Jack clutched it, eyes burning as Dixon's breath stilled. Ethan laughed weakly, defeated. You lose too, Harrow. Jack wheeled out, Dixon's sacrifice heavy on his soul. 6 months had passed since the blood-soaked night at the old base, and Red Hollow basked in a tentative dawn. Jack Harrow stood in his wheelchair on the courthouse steps, the East Texas sun warm on his face as Ethan Caldwell was led away in cuffs, sentenced to 60 years. Bobby Caldwell's life term had already begun, their empire of corruption reduced to ash by Jack's relentless evidence. Tapes, drives, Dixon's dying testimony. The town buzzed below, storefronts reopening, Kids playing in streets once ruled by fear. Jack clutched Earl Dixon's badge, its weight a quiet ache in his palm, a promise kept. Lena Martinez approached, her smile weary but genuine. "You did it, Jack. Red Hollow's breathing again." Diego trailed her, taller now, his eyes bright with purpose. "College letter came. Criminal justice like we talked." Jack nodded, a rare softness breaking his stoic mask. "Earl'd be proud, kid." The crowd parted as Jack wheeled down the ramp, folks tipping hats, whispering thanks. Harrow Security Solutions reopened that Monday, its modest sign now a beacon. Protection, not extortion. Ghost had rigged a new office, hidden servers humming with data on lingering threats. Jack's war wasn't over. Corruption didn't die easy. But today he let himself feel the win. Lena squeezed his shoulder. "What's next?" Jack glanced at the horizon, pines swaying gently. "Building something better," he said, voice firm. That evening, Jack stood before the new Red Hollow Community Center, a squat brick building funded by his savings and federal grants. Ghost had wrangled. Inside, Diego led a self-defense class, his voice steady as he taught kids moves Jack had drilled into him. Discipline, not violence. Jack wheeled in, watching silently, the clatter of laughter a balm to his scars. "Strength's about protecting what matters," Diego echoed, glancing at Jack with a grin. Jack nodded, the badge in his pocket a silent tether to Dixon's sacrifice. This was why he'd fought, not just to tear down, but to lift up. Later, alone in his new apartment, a fortress of steel and quiet, Jack's secure phone buzzed. Ghost's voice cut through. "Operation Clearwater's heating up. Feds sniffing bigger fish. Multi-state." "You in?" Jack stared at the dusk settling over Red Hollow, the town's lights flickering like stars against the pines. "Always," he replied, a faint smile tugging his lips. He rolled to the window, the wheelchair once mocked now a symbol of unbreakable will. The war on corruption stretched beyond this town, a hydra with heads yet to fall. But for now, Red Hollow stood taller, its people stronger. Jack rested a hand on the glass, Dixon's badge glinting in the fading light. Justice wasn't a finish line. It was a fight worth waging every damn day, and he'd be ready.